On February 25, 1957, along a lonely stretch of Susquehanna Road in Philadelphia, a college student stopped in his car. He was out checking traps, illegal muskrat traps hidden in the brush. Instead of the rabbit he expected, he spotted a large cardboard box discarded near the undergrowth. Curiosity got the better of him. He opened it. Inside was a plaid blanket, wrapped tightly around a boy no older than 6. His small body was bruised, his head scarred, his ribs visible from malnutrition. Someone had cut his hair in a crude, uneven chop. He looked like a child who should have been missed, but no one came forward. For 65 years, he would be known only as the boy in the box, America's unknown child, a face that haunted flyers, newspaper clippings, and police files, a mystery passed down from one generation of detectives to the next, until, at last, science gave him back his name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Welcome back to The Dark Side. I'm Carmen Carrion, and this is Deadly Intent, the dark side of humanity. On this show, we peer into the abyss of true crime, the choices, cruelties, and human shadows that transform lives forever. Monsters of folklore may keep us up at night, but the monsters we fear most often walk among us, unseen, unnoticed, until they don't. Today's story is unsettling, not only because of the crime itself, but because of what came after. Silence, mystery, decades of questions, and finally, a fragile hope born of modern science. This is the story of the boy in the box, or rather, the boy behind the box, a child whose name, after 6 decades, was finally returned to him, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. So turn down the lights, let the world outside fade, and join me as we trace the chilling timeline of one of America's most enduring mysteries. Philadelphia, 1957. The city was changing fast. Steel and shipbuilding still defined its working-class identity, but suburban growth was reshaping its edges. Families bought tidy homes outside the city limits, pursuing the post-war American dream. But for every sparkling new subdivision, there were neighborhoods steeped in poverty, places where neglect slipped between the cracks. On Susquehanna Road, far northeast in Fox Chase, the woods were quiet, a place where teens went parking, hunters set traps, and secrets could be hidden. The first discovery of the box came from a young man checking muskrat traps. He looked inside, saw what was there, and froze. But fear of being fined or arrested for his illegal activity, kept him silent. He closed the box, walked away, and told no one. The boy might have remained undiscovered for weeks, if not for another chance encounter. 3 days later, on February 28th, a man named Frederick Benonis pulled his car to the side of the road. He had spotted a rabbit darting into the brush. Instead of chasing the animal, he stumbled on the box. Inside, he found the small, pale body, wrapped in a thin plaid blanket, laid inside a cardboard bassinet box sold by JCPenney. Benonis hesitated. For 2 long days, he debated whether to call the police. Maybe he feared being accused himself. Maybe he didn't want to be entangled in something so grim. But in the end, conscience won. On March 2nd, he called the Philadelphia police. Detective Bill Kelly was one of the first on the scene. Decades later, retired, he would admit he could never forget what he saw that day. The boy was small, only 40 inches tall, weighing about 30 pounds. The coroner estimated he was between 4 and 6 years old. His body bore signs of severe neglect. He was malnourished, bruised. His hands and feet were wrinkled, as though they had been submerged in water. His hair had been cut recently and crudely. Uneven clumps still stuck to his skin. The medical examiner determined the cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. But there were contradictions. The boy's fingernails were neatly trimmed. His body, though malnourished, was clean, and there were scars, one on his ankle from a surgery to treat clubfoot, one on his groin from a hernia operation, and another beneath his chin. He had clearly seen a doctor at some point. Someone had cared enough to seek medical treatment, yet not enough to keep him safe or nourished. Philadelphia police launched one of the largest investigations in the city's history. Flyers with the boy's face, his haunting post-mortem photo retouched to look alive, were mailed with gas bills, hung in post offices, plastered on police stations, 400,000 in total. The bassinet box was traced to JCPenney in Upper Darby. Of the dozen boxes sold in that time frame, every lead fizzled out. Door-to-door searches scoured the neighborhood. Foster homes and orphanages were checked. Hospitals were contacted. The boy's fingerprints and footprints were taken. His case was shared across state lines. And still, nothing. On July 24, 1957, the boy was buried in a Potter's Field grave in Philadelphia. The stone read simply, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." For the city, for the investigators, for the generations to follow, he became something both intimate and alien. The boy in the box. A child everyone recognized, yet no one claimed. The boy in the box became a fixture in Philadelphia crime files. Year after year, detectives reopened the folder, searching for something they might have missed. But as the pages yellowed, the case seemed to grow heavier, harder to lift. Without a name, every clue felt like a dead end. And so theories began to multiply, some born of desperation, others from obsession. In the late 1950s, investigators began looking closely at foster homes near Fox Chase. The most prominent was the Nicoletti foster home, just a mile and a half from where the boy's body was found. The house, run by Arthur and Marie Nicoletti, sheltered dozens of children over the years. A psychic, brought in during the investigation, claimed she saw visions of the boy connected to the Nicoletti property. Detectives followed the lead, scouring the grounds, questioning the family. But every child in the home was accounted for. Records matched. No one fit Joseph's description. Still, suspicion lingered. Could the boy have been hidden, his paperwork falsified? Nothing concrete ever surfaced. But for decades, some officers whispered that the answer had been just down the road all along. If there was one man who refused to let go, it was Remington Bristow, a medical examiner's investigator. Bristow became consumed by the case. He spent his own money chasing leads. Even after retirement, his wife joked that the boy had become his second family. Bristow developed what came to be called the M theory. He believed the child was connected to a foster home run by a woman known as Martha in the Memphis area. The house matched several details Bristow had pieced together, including a bassinet purchased from JCPenney. He visited, asked questions, even tried to track down former residents. But the evidence was circumstantial at best. Police investigated his claims repeatedly but found no proof. Bristow died in 1993, still convinced he was right. His ashes were buried beside the boy in the box's grave, a testament to his lifelong obsession. In 2002, a woman identified as Martha came forward with a shocking story. She claimed her abusive mother, who ran a traveling carnival, had purchased the boy from his biological parents in 1954. According to Martha, the boy endured years of abuse. One day, after vomiting baked beans, her mother beat him to death in the bathtub. Martha said she remembered the boy's haircut being done after his death to disguise him. She even described his fingers pruning from being placed in water, details that matched the autopsy. Investigators were intrigued. For a moment, it seemed the mystery might finally break. But inconsistencies quickly surfaced. Martha's timelines wavered. Her mental health history raised doubts. And crucially, no physical evidence connected her family to the boy. Still, some detectives admitted her version explained details other theories didn't. Today, her story remains in the liminal space between truth and fabrication. Possible, but unproven. By the 1990s, the case had grown cold. But then a new group emerged, the Vidocq Society, founded in 1990 by FBI agent William Fleischer, forensic artist Frank Bender, and criminal profiler Richard Walter. The society was named after Eugene-Francois Vidocq, a 19th century French detective. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Gather the best minds in forensics, profiling, and criminology to tackle cold cases over lunch in Philadelphia. Membership was exclusive, capped at 82 experts, and from the beginning, the boy in the box became their unofficial mascot. Fleischer often visited the boy's grave, speaking aloud as though to a son. "When I come here, I can feel his spirit. He knows he's loved. He knows we're going to put a name on that stone." The Vidocq Society pushed the boy's 1998 exhumation, hoping advances in DNA could yield answers. His body was moved to Ivy Hill Cemetery, reburied in a donated plot with a new headstone reading America's Unknown Child. Unfortunately, the DNA technology of the 1990s wasn't advanced enough. The sample was preserved, but answers remained out of reach. In the early 2000s, new tools brought new hope. Facial reconstructions were attempted, some eerily lifelike. Forensic anthropologists performed isotope analysis, suggesting Joseph had grown up locally, drinking Philadelphia water. But every test confirmed only what was already suspected. He was a local boy, known to someone, yet no one ever came forward. By the 2010s, after more than half a century of dead ends, the boy in the box had become both legend and tragedy. He haunted the pages of true crime books, inspired television specials, and was whispered about in classrooms. But behind the myth was still just a child, a boy who deserved a name. And in 2018, a breakthrough in an entirely different case, the Golden State Killer, would change everything. By the late 2010s, DNA had become a household term. Television crime dramas leaned heavily on the promise of a single strand of hair or a speck of blood unlocking the truth. But for decades, DNA analysis was limited. Early methods could only compare known suspects to crime scene samples. Without a direct comparison, cases like the boy in the box languished in dead ends. Then came a watershed moment, the arrest of Joseph James DeAngelo, better known as the Golden State Killer. In 2018, investigators revealed they had used a new technique, genetic genealogy, to link DeAngelo to a string of rapes and murders committed in the 1970s and 80s. The approach was revolutionary. By uploading crime scene DNA into public databases like GED Match, genealogists could identify distant relatives of the suspect and build elaborate family trees until they zeroed in on the perpetrator. For the Vidocq Society and the Philadelphia police, this was the lifeline they had been waiting for. They had the DNA of the boy in the box, painstakingly preserved and retested through the years. But the question loomed, would it be enough? The first attempts were shaky. The DNA sample, degraded after decades of exposure, wasn't yielding the clean results genealogists needed. Laboratories like Parabon Nanolabs worked to extract what they could, running it through specialized filters and amplification techniques. Slowly, a genetic profile began to take shape. In 2019, genealogists traced faint threads of connection to a family in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. The tree was vast, branching across generations. Each leaf, each name, represented a potential clue. Genealogists spent countless hours combing through census records, obituaries, and marriage certificates. It was a race not against time. Time had already taken so much, but against uncertainty. Would the trail lead anywhere? The Vidocq Society kept their hopes guarded. They had been here before, chasing promising leads that evaporated under scrutiny. Still, something felt different this time. Advances in science were closing gaps once thought unbridgeable. Forensic genealogist Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick, who had worked on similar cases, described it as solving a puzzle with 90% of the pieces missing. But sometimes, she added, the picture becomes clear with just the right few pieces. The turning point came when genealogists identified close relatives, first cousins, then siblings. The trail narrowed until it pointed to one name, One boy had been lost in the records for decades, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. When the identity was confirmed through DNA testing in 2022, it felt like the city itself exhaled. For 65 years, the boy in the box had been a nameless symbol of sorrow. Now he had a name. He had a family. He had a story. The announcement was delivered at a press conference in December of that year. Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw stood before the cameras, her voice steady but tinged with gravity. This child, who has been known to the world as the boy in the box, has finally regained his identity. He was Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born January 13, 1953. The room went silent for a moment, as if those listening were absorbing the weight of the revelation. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras clicked. But the significance transcended the mechanics of journalism. A lost child had been found. Yet, even in triumph, questions multiplied. Why was Joseph abandoned? What circumstances led to his death? Did his parents know? Were they complicit? The answers, it seemed, were as elusive as ever. The press conference in December 2022 was more than an announcement. It was a moment of collective reckoning. For decades, the boy in the box had haunted not only Philadelphia, but also the entire nation. His face had been frozen in time, staring blankly from aging posters and cold case files. Now, finally, that boy had a name. The reveal was met with a strange cocktail of emotions: relief, grief, vindication, and disbelief. Reporters scrambled to get the story out, headlines flashing across screens within minutes. America's unknown child identified after 65 years. For many, it was the first time they had ever heard of Joseph's story, yet the tragedy resonated immediately. The image of a nameless child found in a cardboard box in 1957 struck a nerve across generations. Commissioner Danielle Outlaw's statement was careful. She confirmed Joseph's identity and revealed his birth date, but emphasized that the investigation into his death was still active. "We have closed one chapter of this story," she said, "but there is still much more to be written." Behind the podium, detectives and forensic specialists stood in somber solidarity. Among them were members of the Vidocq Society, their decades of persistence finally validated. Bill Fleischer, one of the Society's founders, admitted that even after so long, he had to steady himself as Joseph's name was spoken aloud. "It's like meeting someone you've known your whole life, but only in your dreams," he said. But the answers were not complete. Naming Joseph did not explain the cruelty that had ended his short life. Investigators began piecing together his family history, combing through records, tracing half-siblings, cousins, and distant relatives. Slowly, fragments of his life emerged. Joseph was the child of Augustus Gus Zarelli and Mary Elizabeth Abel, a young couple in Philadelphia in the early 1950s. Their relationship was strained, marred by instability. Joseph's existence had been a complicated one, born into difficult circumstances. Some records suggested that he may not have lived with either parent consistently. There were whispers of foster arrangements, extended family involvement, and possibly even attempts to keep his birth quiet. When genealogists tracked down surviving relatives, reactions varied. Some were shocked to learn of Joseph's existence at all. Others had faint recollections, hushed conversations, family rumors about a lost child. No one, however, could provide the definitive truth of how Joseph's life had ended. The public's response mirrored this mixture of closure and incompleteness. Vigils were held at the Ivy Hill Cemetery, where Joseph's grave had stood for years, marked by a simple headstone reading "America's Unknown Child." Now, mourners gathered to leave flowers and toys, whispering his name aloud as if to affirm his presence in the world. One visitor, an elderly woman who had grown up near Susquehanna Road, told reporters, "I prayed for that boy every night since 1957. I never thought I'd know his name. Now I can finally say it when I pray." Yet even as Joseph was reclaimed by anonymity, his murder remained unsolved. Detectives, bolstered by renewed attention, revisited old theories with fresh urgency. Could his parents have been involved? Was there neglect, abuse, or a desperate attempt to hide a scandal? Or was his death the tragic outcome of a foster arrangement gone wrong? Philadelphia police made it clear the case was still open. Leads were being followed, interviews conducted, but time, as always, was the greatest adversary. Nearly everyone who might have known the truth was gone, their voices silenced by age and mortality. Still, there was power in the breakthrough. Naming Joseph had shifted the case from abstraction to reality. He was no longer a faceless victim, but a child who had lived, who had family, who had a name that belonged to him. For the city, for the investigators, for the Vidocq Society, it was a moment of both triumph and tragedy. The boy in the box was gone forever, but Joseph Augustus Zarelli could finally be mourned as the person he was. For all the relief of finally giving Joseph Augustus Zarelli his name, the announcement in 2022 did not close the case. It only deepened the shadows. The fundamental question, who killed Joseph, remains unanswered. Investigators tread carefully, knowing the eyes of the nation were on them. They revisited every scrap of evidence, from the cardboard box to the blanket. But 65 years of time had not been kind. Forensic testing could reveal new details, but DNA alone cannot reconstruct a crime scene long since erased. The theories persisted. Some believed Joseph had been a victim of abuse at home, his death concealed in panic or shame. Others suspected a wider circle, foster care gone wrong, a caretaker overwhelmed, or even an attempt to cover up a child's existence altogether. The foster home near Susquehanna Road, once the center of intense suspicion, still loomed large in conversations. Was it coincidence that the boy had been found so close? Or had investigators been circling the truth all along? Detectives now faced a dilemma familiar to anyone who works cold cases. The suspects and witnesses of 1957 were mostly gone. Those who remained were elderly, their memories blurred by time, or unwilling to reopen painful wounds. As Commissioner Outlaw put it, we may never know all the answers, but Joseph deserves for us to keep asking the questions. For the public, Joseph's story became something larger than one unsolved murder. It was a reflection of how society treats its most vulnerable. In the 1950s, child welfare systems were fractured, often leaving children to fall through the cracks. Adoptions and foster care were poorly regulated, and abuse was easily hidden. Joseph's fate seemed to embody those systematic failures, a reminder that forgotten children exist not just in history, but in the present. The Vidocq Society continued to meet, discussing Joseph's case even after his identification. For members like Bill Fleischer and Frank Bender's successors, the mystery was more than an intellectual puzzle. It was a moral obligation. As Fleischer once said, "We owe these victims a voice. If we don't speak for them, no one will." Joseph's grave at Ivy Hill Cemetery became a site of pilgrimage. The old headstone reading "America's Unknown Child" still stood, but now people left notes and flowers addressed directly to Joseph. Some wrote letters to him, apologizing that it had taken so long for his name to be known. Parents brought their own children to the grave, using Joseph's story as a lesson in empathy, resilience, and justice. Media outlets produced documentaries, podcasts, and articles revisiting the mystery. The boy in the box had always been a haunting symbol, but now he was a boy with a name, a birthday, and a history. His story resonated across the true crime community, sparking conversations about how many unknown children remain out there, buried in unmarked graves or lost in forgotten files. And in a broader sense, Joseph's case underscored the transformative power of forensic genealogy. Cases once thought unsolvable were suddenly within reach. Cold case units across the country began reopening files, inspired by Joseph's identification. If his name could be found after 65 years, perhaps others could too. Still, the mystery of Joseph's death lingers, stubborn and unresolved. Every answer seems to breed new questions. Who cared for him in his final days? Why was his small body left in a box, abandoned as though he meant nothing? Did someone grieve in silence? Or did those responsible carry their secret unburdened until death? These are the questions that may never be fully answered. Yet Joseph's identity, once lost, has been restored. And in that act of restoration lies a kind of justice, not in punishment, but in remembrance. He is no longer the boy in the box. He is Joseph Augustus Zarelli, a child who lived, who mattered, and who will never again be forgotten. When investigators first found Joseph's body in 1957, they couldn't have imagined that it would take more than 6 decades to learn his name. For years, he was America's unknown child, a symbol of loss and mystery, a question mark carved into the heart of Philadelphia. But now we know him. We can say his name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. In the end, this story is not just about a murder. It is about identity, memory, and justice, the things we owe to the dead, especially to children who cannot speak for themselves. Naming Joseph did not solve the mystery of his death, but it did restore something vital. It gave him back his humanity. As we reflect on Joseph's story, we're reminded of how fragile memory is, how easily the voices of the most vulnerable can be silenced, how easily a life can slip into anonymity. But we're also reminded of the power of persistence, of detectives, journalists, forensic scientists, genealogists, and ordinary citizens who refuse to let this child be forgotten. There are still questions, still shadows, still wounds that may never fully heal. But Joseph is no longer a nameless victim. He is a boy with a birthday, a family, and a resting place where people now speak his name aloud. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all, that even in places where justice is incomplete, remembrance is its own kind of victory. The act of remembering ensures that Joseph's story will continue to echo long after the headlines fade. So tonight, as we close this chapter, let us carry Joseph with us. Let us honor him, not as a mystery, but as a child who lived. And let us remember that behind every cold case file, every unsolved crime, there is a human being whose story deserves to be told. Because sometimes, the smallest act of justice we can offer is to say their name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli.